Welcome into another edition of Buffalo Gameday Recap. I'm AJ Feldman. Joining me shortly from Tampa Bay is Sports Director Thad Brown. Now, to say that this game was a tale of two halves would be a bit of an understatement. Down 24-3 at the half, the Bills stage a furious comeback, score the last 17 points of regulation to force overtime. But in OT, Brashad Perriman gets open for a 58-yard touchdown, turning what could have been one of the great wins in Bills history into just another game in the loss column. We now bring in Sports Director Thad Brown. Thad, what are your big takeaways from tonight's wild finish and what this means for the Bills going forward?
You know, AJ, I think you're right. In the long term, in the history books, this will be just another loss. But for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, legit ones, there should not be an opportunity for a moral victory. Every loss is a loss and a win is a win. I think this might fall into the moral victory category. They did so many things right to come back from 21 points down at the half, 17 points down in the fourth quarter, on the road against the defending Super Bowl champs, against Tom Brady, who has 8 gazillion championships and is at the top of his game this year. There's a lot of positives that the Bills can and should take from this game. Josh Allen, I walked next to him coming off the field. He had his head down. I don't know if he should. You know, and he was speaking highly of his team and how they felt afterward. You're going to hear a little bit of that in a minute. But overall, big picture, it's very possible that this game could be a springboard for something bigger for the Bills. Let's be straight, though. The Bills got themselves in such a big hole. They needed every single inch to go their way in the second half. And whether it be Leonard Fournette's third down and one carry where he barely got the first down or a couple of officiating calls didn't go their way, the Bills didn't get all those inches in the second half. And eventually, Tom Brady made the play that beat them. But again, you know, for a season that should be devoid of moral victories, it almost kind of felt like this one was a moral victory today. And that even goes for the way Josh Allen had a Freudian slip about talking about this game in the press conferences afterward.
I think this win, or this loss, can really pull a team together. And the feeling in the locker room after the game, you know, we're pissed off we didn't win. But the unity and how we were brought together in that second half, I think it's going to pay dividends going forward.
Yeah, I just felt like overall the staff made really good adjustments. And that goes for all three phases. And we didn't have a very good first half. And I think we found a rhythm offensively in the second half.
The message was just keep fighting. You know we was better than what we showed in the first half. And we really had to get back to being us.
I'm extremely proud of the guys, man, because when I look on the sideline, you know, everybody, you know, head is up. Everybody is fighting till that whistle hits zero, man. And, you know, every time you're not going to get the result that you want. But to see that fight in your guys, to see that dog in your guys, I mean, what more can you ask for?
There's no moral victories in this league. You know, a loss is a loss. It's tough. You know, but the resilience we have to stay in the game and continue to take one play at a time and fight back, you know, it says a lot about the guys in the locker room.
We want to win. We want to be great. And with how we respond in that second half, again, that's the team that we've got to be going forward. And we understand that. And we know that. And I don't expect anything else.
A lot of talk about the second half being who the Bills really are. Sean McDermott said, I saw something there. And Josh Allen actually said, this is who we are, that team in the second half. Real quick, I know there's some Bills fans who are going to complain about calls and officiating. First of all, on the Stephon Diggs play at the end of the regulation in the end zone, to me, that call falls into two categories. It could have been pass interference. It didn't have to be pass interference. That's what 90% of those calls are. I'm not bent out of shape about it. I don't think Bills fans should be either. I know fans are fans. They will be. In the end, you know, the Bills needed too much to go their way in the second half, and just not enough did. AJ, time for your take. We go back to the studio.
Yeah, Thad, like you mentioned, that second half performance, whatever it was the Bills figured out, specifically on the offensive line, it made a world of difference. That first half, Allen just had no time at all. You saw it in some of the camera shots of him. He was looking defeated dealing with that pass rush. Props to the line for whatever they figured out in the second half. Hopefully that carries over to the next couple weeks of the season. Dane Jackson certainly held his own in his first big test filling in for Trey White. He did a really nice job on Gronk on a couple plays. He didn't really get exposed, and you knew coming into the game that Brady would try and pick on him. You know, you could see this being every single time, you know, Brady drops back to pass, he's looking at Dane Jackson. That didn't really happen. That's much deserved credit to the second-year man from Pitt. And another guy who stepped up big, Gabriel Davis, with Emmanuel Sanders out for much of this game. It took about 4 efforts for him to get that 4th down conversion on that final drive in regulation. It's probably time to give him more of an expanded role, potentially with that injury to Emmanuel Sanders. It might come whether or not they actually want it, but he has been producing these last few weeks, and I can think he's going to be building on this. And the Bills, they finally have something to build on. If that second half went the same way as the first, like you mentioned, no moral victories, of course, but that would be a tough loss to rebound from, especially with the way that Patriots game went. They're probably going to have to go 3-1 to make the playoffs in these final 4 weeks. If they play like they did in the second half, they'll be in good shape. Let's head back out to Thad in Tampa Bay, where Josh Allen's teammates once again marveling at another gutty performance from their quarterback.
And why not? I mean, Josh Allen ended this game with over 400 total yards. He threw for 300. He ran for 100. That's a gazillion fantasy points in most leagues. It was an incredible performance. Sean McDermott used exactly that word, and it's appropriate. Look, it wasn't just Allen who was responsible for the comeback in this game. One of the things that blew me away is really everybody had a piece of it. Gabe Davis had catches. They talked about Dane Jackson making plays. Even Matt Hawk, the punter, had a big one in overtime that could have flipped the field if Tom Brady didn't make a few plays after it. So this was really a team effort. But Josh Allen as the quarterback is the guy that had to be at the center of it, the guy who was dragging it, the guy who was making sure, that this comeback continued moving forward, and he more than did his job. I mean, no turnovers in the second half. Like I said, over 400 combined yards, 3 combined touchdowns. Josh Allen was a guy who deserved to be the owner of a $258 million contract.
The guy you can rally around, a guy who was in pain. I mean, you saw the pain he was in and was still asking for QB runs and still asking to put it on his back. And when you have a guy like that step into a huddle, you're so prideful in having a quarterback like that, and you want to do everything in your power to help him lead our team down the field.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise you, I'm sure, right? That's why the guys love him. That's why, he's our quarterback.
That's our general, for sure. Man, he's a dog. No matter what, he's always going to give it his all. And that's what he showed.
He's a warrior, and everybody sees that. And, when the team rallies around a guy like that, it's going to be hard to beat. But, I mean, the way he puts the team on the back, dealing with whatever injury he's got right now, it's we've seen it time after time from him, so no one's really surprised. But there's no other guy I'd rather lead us into a game.
And you heard a couple Bills talk about Allen playing with an injury and some pain. He was in a walking boot in his left ankle/foot. No word on how severe the injury is. Allen said that during the game, any talk about him maybe not being able to play was something that was never going to happen. He said simply, I was not coming out of the game. So all those numbers, all the comeback stuff Allen did, he did it kind of on a bum leg. Very, very impressive. A little more on the injury coming up later on in this show. AJ, back to you for some more of the numbers from this contest.
Thank you, Thad. Taking a look at the stats from today's game. Like you said, Josh Allen, a Herculean performance, 308 yards in the air, 109 on the ground, 3 total touchdowns. Receiving-wise, Stephon Diggs, 7 catches, 74 yards. Of course, a couple plays where possibly he got interfered with, as we talked about before. That will certainly be a discussion point going forward. Dawson Knox, another big game and another big breakout season. 7 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Moving things over to the other sideline. Tom Brady, another great performance from him, 363 yards and 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette, a $113 and a touchdown. Didn't do a ton other than that big run, but certainly a momentum-setting run in the first half. And then Mike Evans had a phenomenal catch in the end zone, 6 catches, 91 yards, and a score. Chris Godwin also had an impressive game as well. Well, another game where Sean McDermott made some questionable decisions. A fake punt in the third quarter, kicking a field goal on 4th and goal from the 3 in the first half, and punting down 14 on 4th and 3 at midfield. After the game, McDermott defended those final 2 decisions.
Down 10-0, wanted to get points on the board there, and then to come away with no points at that point, you're down 10-0, just didn't like that feeling if it could have gone that way, and then did want to. I thought, I left the offense out for a second, but I did like how the defense. I think we had 3 going back to even the first half. There 3 consecutive stops on defense, and So I thought long and hard about it, and thought giving us the best chance to win, and we had a chance to win it at the end there. So I mean, that could have gone either way, but I chose to punt it back, and felt like it would give us the best chance, towards the end of the game there, and we had a chance, but came up short.
That punt led to a field goal by the Bucs. The final points they would score before their overtime winner. With more on that touchdown in OT, let's send it back out to Thad.
Yeah, AJ, the play at the end of the game, the one that won it for Tampa Bay, wasn't really, a very complicated one X and O wise. The Bills sent a blitz. They left their defensive backs, their coverage team, in man-to-man coverage. And what happened is Tremaine Edmonds, or the coverage, got caught in what the Bills will, and you'll hear it in a minute, call a rub route, which means that one receiver gets kind of picked off a defensive back onto someone else, and we ended up with Brashad Perryman, probably the fastest man on the field for either team, going up against Tremaine Edmonds, a linebacker. It's not an ideal situation for the Bills, and Edmonds was the one chasing as Perryman ran down the field for a touchdown. The Bills talked about how that play went down and how maybe they could have handled it better after the game.
It's kind of hard. A lot of things was going on as far as exactly what happened. I didn't even look at the replay of it, but, obviously just wasn't in the right position to make a play.
I know the look of it is, a linebacker on a wide receiver that's not designed to go that way, but we got rubbed, and he's there to clean some things up. So at the end of the day, look, they made one more play, and I'm confident my guys will make it next time.
They dialed up a good play versus tough coverage. So, but, at the end of the day, we got to execute. Again, defensively, we didn't take the ball away nearly enough as we need to. We didn't take the ball away at all.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the play call. I mean, at the end of the day, whatever play is called, we just got to execute it. It's really no need to point fingers about the play calling. It's just we got to execute. Defensively, whatever's called out there, we got to just bow up and make a play.
Edmonds is right. I mean, it's really not a play that I think is on him per se. Like the Bills, I'll look at it more on film and maybe have more opinions later on in the week. But for now, it's a team play. The Bills try to blitz. The Bucs picked it up. And when you pick up a blitz, that's what happens. You're going to end up with a receiver, maybe more than one, in an advantageous one-on-one matchup. Tom Brady found it. That's why he's a legend. And the Bucs won the game. I think walking away from this, two things. Number one, obviously, is Josh Allen's injury. With a foot in a boot, sometimes it's not a big deal. Sometimes it is. Marquez Stevenson left a preseason game in a boot and, wasn't really heard from for the first half of the season. So we'll see how severe it is. If there's any way Josh Allen can play, he will. Is it possible we may see Mitch Trubisky against the Panthers at home next weekend because the Panthers aren't the Patriots, aren't the game that's left on the regular season schedule? I think it's a discussion point, but I think really it'll depend on Allen's ankle. If he's good to go, he will be out there. Again, did not get any update at all. That'll be something we'll probably hear from Sean McDermott on Monday. As for the big picture for this team, McDermott said something very important afterward. It's just one game. Each game is its own game. Doesn't necessarily mean that what the Bills did in the second half coming back is something they can build on. Of course, they're going to tell you they can because they don't want to talk about how terrible they looked in the first half. What's the point of that? You walk into a locker room expecting to be, hammered every game. No one wants to do that, not in any job, football or whatever you're doing at home. Whether or not this second half comeback can become a trend for the Bills is the big question. Not a guarantee. I think the Bills did a lot of things right, but is it right in this game, in this particular matchup against these players and this team in Tampa Bay, or right in general for the Bills, right in the locker room, maybe a belief, a confidence was developed? It's very possible. It wouldn't be the first time. And again, the Bills aren't out of anything. Right now they don't control their own destiny to win the AFC East, but the Patriots got to play a pretty tough Indianapolis team next week, both coming off a bye. Pats lose that game, and the game up in Foxborough between Buffalo and the Patriots will essentially be for the AFC East lead. So look, the season's not over. 7-6 is a tough spot. AJ's right. 3 out of 4 should get them in the playoffs. Whether or not this becomes a building block or it's just one really good half will depend on how the Bills play the last 4 games and the playoffs the rest of this season. I'm going to be talking to you on the News 8 Facebook page in just a minute, answering some of your questions if you want. And, of course, a whole lot more coverage from this game coming up tonight at 11 on News 8 and on RochesterFirst.com. Live from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, inside the Buffalo Huddle, I'm Thad Brown. AJ, back to you.
Thank you very much, Thad. The Bills will have 3 of their final 4 games at home next week. It's the Carolina Panthers coming to town. As you mentioned, they are struggling. They have lost their last 3 games and 4 of their last 5. Well, thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your night. We'll have full coverage on this game all week long on News 8 and RochesterFirst.com. For Thad Brown, I'm AJ Feldman. Have a great rest of your night.
Follow News 8 wherever you are on RochesterFirst.com, Facebook, Twitter, and on our app for news and weather.